Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Nick Robin. I know I've been gone for a little bit now, was dealing with some stomach issues, had a little virus hit me a couple days ago, and it's put me out of commission nearly almost a week now. But I'm back now, and we have some important topics to cover on today's show. For all of you that have been living under a rock this past week, so much has happened, not just on the basketball court, but off it as well. Starting with the Milwaukee Bucks, who decided not to go out for their game last week against the Orlando Magic. And that just started a whole domino effect, not just in the NBA world, but across the entire sports landscape. So let me begin. Milwaukee forfeits Wednesday's game in regards to the Jacob Blake shooting. What some people might not know is that the Bucks were up 3-1 on the Magic. They decided that Game 5 didn't matter. Go up 3-2, and they'll still have 2 games to beat the Orlando Magic, who they should easily beat, being the number 1 seed and one of the best teams, not just in the NBA this year, but of all time. They decide to forfeit the game. Orlando rejects their forfeit and decides to stand with them. That game is postponed. Thunder Rockets game that night also postponed, along with the Lakers game that was supposed to be played against the Blazers. And here's a statement that came from the Milwaukee Bucks. Start quote, "Over the last few days in our home state of Wisconsin, we've seen the horrendous video of Jacob Blake being shot in the back 7 times by a police officer in Kenosha, and the additional shooting of protesters. Despite the overwhelming plea for change, there has been no action, so our focus today cannot be on basketball. When we take the court and represent Milwaukee and Wisconsin, we're expected to play at a high level, give maximum effort, and hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves to that standard, and in this moment, we are demanding the same from our lawmakers and law enforcement," end quote. Powerful words coming from Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm tired and sick of people saying, shut up and dribble. These are not just athletes. They're not just here for our entertainment. Human beings, first and foremost. And they haven't felt that. They haven't felt that our country hasn't shown that they are treated the same as everyone else. And that's all they want. So going back to what I said earlier, the domino effect. So the first talk of a possible boycott came from the Toronto Raptors on Tuesday when guard Fred VanVleet expressed the possibility during his media time. And from there, the discussions became a little bit more real. The Rockets Thunder and the Blazers Lakers were postponed as well. And not just the NBA, the entire sports landscape followed the Milwaukee Bucks. There were the multiple games in the MLB that were canceled that day. Jason Hayward of the Chicago Cubs and Matt Kemp of the Colorado Rockies sat out their respective game. Naomi Osaka, the number 1 player in the entire women's tennis tour, withdrew from the Western and Southern Open quarterfinals. However, they postponed the entire tournament on Thursday, and she came back to play on Friday. I will point that out, but still another great stand from the young Naomi Osaka. 5 of 6 MLS games were postponed, and all 3 WNBA games were postponed as well. I think one of the most powerful moments from last week was when Kenny Smith, the former Houston Rockets player, two-time champion, walked off the TNT set. And here's what he had to say. Start quote, "And for me, I think the biggest thing now as a black man, as a former player, I think it's best for me to support the players and just not be here tonight." End quote. He dropped his mic, walked off the stage, and I commend him for that. He stood with his people. He stood for the league that has given him so much in his life, that has made him a millionaire, made him the TNT announcer that he is today. He owes the NBA so much, so he stood with the players, as he should. And what's going on, we are going to remember for the rest of our lives where we were on August 26th when the balls stopped dribbling, the pitchers stopped pitching, the soccer balls stopped kicking. And I don't have the right words right now, and I can't relate on a deeper level. I am white. I will never know what it's like to walk out of my house and be scared for my life, to see people give me dirty looks on the street because of the color of my skin. I will never know what that feels like. I can't properly sympathize with what these players, what these human beings are going through. I took my time on this podcast. I did a lot of research, and I read a lot of articles on the Undefeated, on ESPN. I tried to go to all different sources so I didn't look like I was coming from just one angle. But this is a powerful quote that I got from Clinton Yates' Undefeated article. And this is regarding what exactly stopping play will do and what it will not do. So start quote, "That said, if the only progress, in quotation marks, we get out of this is players proving to themselves that when they feel that their humanity is at risk, then they are allowed to say so, that's a net positive. Offending rich white people on its own should not be a crime, but because this is America, we've somehow convinced ourselves that it is." End quote. And I saw myself scattering throughout Twitter and seeing all the people saying they're not going to watch the NBA ever again, this and that, all this political bullshit that you see on the news. And it's like, why? Why are you going to stop watching the NBA? Because some people got shot down and people are getting murdered left and right. So you're going to stop watching a game that I think is by far the best league right now in America. And we have people, not going to name names, calling the NBA a political organization. Yes, the NBA has become a political organization, but that's because what they see going on in the world, they don't agree with. And a lot of people just can't get that through their thick heads. And I don't want to sit here and make this some whole political rant. I don't know, what else to say about America. How can we not just tell that, this is, all these guys are asking for, these athletes, they're just asking for the same rights that you and me have. They're just asking to be treated with respect. Yeah, it seems like as a very logical person, or someone who's somewhat logical, I feel like this shouldn't be that hard to get through to the country that we live in. But then we have other people coming back at us. Again, won't name names, but they're causing more harm than good at this point. So why did this all happen? Again, let's go back. Jacob Blake, obviously, and all other acts of police brutality that have faced the black community. And they did this to show their humanity, that we are not just here for your entertainment. And I saw J.R. Smith's comments about, now you see us, now you don't, and I don't think that's the right way to go about this at all, because I think that's making it more about the players and about the movement. And this is just crazy, everything that's going on. And especially the fact that all these players are in such close-knit quarters that they have, this is the only time this would ever actually happen, where we have the whole NBA, well, the teams that are still left in the playoff chase, all in the same hotels, in close proximity to each other. They have the ability to talk to each other and voice their opinions, where most of the time you're traveling on the road, you're going from city to city, where this would never happen. So this is the only time in the history of the NBA that a scenario like this could come to fruition. And there was a closed-door meeting last Wednesday, and LeBron came in, and I think he went about it the wrong way from what the reports are saying, how he came in and was very condescending and kind of talking down on like the younger generation. And I think he needs to take a step back as well. And this is bigger than LeBron. People were saying he was upset that the Bucks kind of did this on their own without consulting them first. And that's when Jaylen Brown, young players in this league, are stepping up to the plate. Jaylen Brown, earlier in the year, helped lead a protest in Atlanta following the killing of George Floyd. So he was out there in the action. He demanded justice for Breonna Taylor and Blake since entering the bubble on numerous occasions. He was a leader vocally in this closed-door meeting. Basically said this: the Bucks didn't need to explain themselves, and he fully supported what they did. And the next thing I'm about to quote is in reference to them shutting down the NBA season, which the Lakers and Clippers were the only teams, surprisingly, because those are two of the favorites to win the title, which shows a lot that they were willing to cancel this entire season. But Jaylen Brown's response, I think, was very well put. Start quote: okay, if you guys leave here, are you just going to leave and go chill and hang out with your families and lose that loneliness? Or are you going to be in the trenches? Are you going to be in the streets? End quote. What he said is the best way for their message to get across is to continue to play, to continue to speak out. And not just speak out, put words into action. And that's where my next guy comes in, Malcolm Brogdon. Master's degree in public policy from University of Virginia, one of the best public institutions in the country. Him, Isaiah Thomas, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the senior VP of the U.S. Chamber, Rick Wade, are helping to form a coalition with other sports leagues and create policies that can be pushed forward to help with the message and the movement they are trying to get across. That is where the real action is. Because everyone around the country keeps on saying this, they keep on saying that, but they're not doing any actual action. And that's where Malcolm Brogdon comes in with Isaiah, with Kareem, with the senior VP of the U.S. Chamber. They're looking to make shit happen. And this is what needs to happen next. Everything begins at the local levels. So these players need to go into their local communities and see what laws govern criminal justice originate at the local and state levels. They need to get in touch with grassroots organizations that can force reform reside in those local communities. So that's where it all begins, at the state and local level. Instead of going nationally, for example, in Milwaukee, you go to your local government, state government, and teams of players need to become educated about what kind of measures that must be undertaken to lessen the likelihood of what happened to Jacob Blake happening to anyone else. They need to use their voice, their capital, their resources, and their influence to push local leaders to make the kind of transformation that they want to see happen. And again, it all begins at the local and state level. They need to link up with experts in criminal justice reform. Players then need to use the muscle of the multi-billionaires who own their NBA teams and run this league. Players have influence, but the owners have political power, something that the players are missing. So again, start at the local level, get in touch with different organizations that are fighting for the same things that these players are fighting for. It all begins there, and then they need to push on their owners to make a difference. Because, yes, the players have significant influence, but at the end of the day, the owners are the ones that can really make things happen. It's going to be exciting to see what happens over these next several months, especially once the season is over, and especially with these owners. The players stopped, and the owners were behind them. But what about next year or the year after that, when something once again goes wrong in America and these players want to stop play? Are the owners going to allow that? Because when the players stop playing, the owners lose money. As simple as that. And right now, with everything going on, the owners need to be on their side. And that's what we're going to talk about next. After this commercial break, we're going to discuss MJ, the Mediator. He's been out of politics for most of his career, but over the last decade or so, he has slowly changed his way, which has been great to see. We'll go into that and more right after this break.
All right, we'll be right back with some GSMC in a second, but first we have to talk about our good friends from Dollar Shave Club. And if you haven't heard, the Dollar Shave Club has great razors. Let me be the first to welcome you into the club. Stop buying expensive razors out of the habit and start thinking about joining Dollar Shave Club today. Right now, try out Dollar Shave Club's Ultimate Shave Starter Set for a one-time trial offer of only $5 plus free shipping. After that, you can continue to get an unimaginably smooth shave as razors refill, ship at regular prices to your door as often as you want. Dollar Shave Club's Ultimate Shave Starter Set comes with a 6-blade razor with a trimmer edge, 2 refill cartridges, and a 1-ounce tube of prep scrub, shave butter, and post-shave dew. Now, let me tell you, the prep scrub, my personal favorite, it's amazing. I have ingrown sometimes, and this helps nip that in the bud, legitimately. So ditch your overpriced razor and join the club today with Dollar Shave Club's Ultimate Shave Starter Set for only $5. It has everything you need for an amazing shave. The 6-blade razor, shave butter, prep scrub, and post-shave dew, all shipped right for whenever you call home nowadays. After that first box, the razor refills ship at regular prices, not the schedule you want. Try the Ultimate Shave Starter Set today just for $5 plus free shipping at dollarshaveclub.com/GSMC That's dollarshaveclub.com/GSMC Welcome to the club.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, and before we get into that juicy third segment I have for you guys today, we're going to stay on the political trail just a little bit longer. Don't worry, this won't be a constant on the podcast, but these are tough times, and we need to talk about the real issues out there. Clearing up what we just spoke about, Milwaukee Bucks, they decided to forfeit their game against the Magic. The Magic wouldn't accept it, and bam, bada boo. The whole sports industry has been turned upside down. Like, holy shit. Like, yeah, you might not agree with what's going on, which, honestly, I don't know why you wouldn't, but it's amazing to see the unity of athletes. Not just black athletes, white athletes as well. And watching some of the players in other sports, Dominic Smith of the Mets, just breaking down, crying. It was, oh my God, it broke my heart seeing a grown man, a 25-year-old man, sit there and cry, asking them, why does America hate us? I don't know how, if you don't have a heart, you must not have a heart, because I don't know how you don't sympathize with something like that. And just seeing a lot of these players come out and the press conferences they had, it's real shit, man. Like, it's just great to see the unity amongst athletes all coming together. Because, like, yeah, basketball said, no, we don't want to play anymore, or play right now. And then baseball followed, MLS followed, tennis, golf, everywhere. Just agreed that there's more important things in the world right now than playing a sport. And that's the whole point of what the Bucks and the NBA trying to tell the world. Now, going forward, we're looking at the GOAT. Yes, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And we're not talking about the 30,000 plus points, the 6 rings, 6-0, as we all know, in the finals. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about MJ the Mediator, and the slow progression he made to get to where he is today. Let's start in the present right now. So as of right now, MJ is the mediator between the owners and the players, which is ironic because Michael Jordan wasn't always a political advocate. He wasn't one to voice his opinion to the general public. Starting early in his career, looking at the Harvey Gantt 1990 U.S. Senate race for the seat in North Carolina. Harvey Gantt, African-American man going up against a white and, let's just call it out how it is, bigot, racist, Jesse Helms. The proof is in the pudding. Go research it. Various acts of racism by Jesse Helms has been proven. We don't need to go much more into that, but Michael Jordan was asked by Harvey Gantt, who we didn't personally know, to endorse him for his candidacy. Michael Jordan famously declined. However, what is not mentioned is Michael Jordan did make a monetary contribution to Harvey Gantt's party. That is true, and this is where the famous quote, "Republicans buy sneakers too." Michael Jordan, he had the Air Jordan brand. He was trying to build that up so he could be where he is today. Say Michael Jordan did endorse Harvey Gantt, he might have lost a lot of sales there, and that doesn't, a domino effect doesn't get him to become a billionaire like he is today. One of 30 owners in the NBA, the only majority black owner in the NBA and NFL. So yes, the Republicans buy sneakers too might have rubbed people the wrong way, but Michael made those decisions that day and got him to where he is today, to have the power to not, he doesn't have to answer to anyone anymore. The Boston Globe quoted Michael Jordan after the 1992 Los Angeles riots and the Rodney King beating saying, quote, "I need to know more about it," end quote, when he was asked about that situation. So early on in his career, Michael Jordan had to play the game. He was still a black man in white America. As popular as he is today, in 1990-92, it wasn't the same case. Yes, he was huge, he was big, but he wanted to get to a point in his life where he didn't have to answer to anyone, and that's where he's at now. That's why he has come out more publicly and not been silent as he was throughout his career. And it's slowly, over the years, in 2004, he supported Obama's campaign for the U.S. Senate. And then in 2012, he supports Obama again, participating in the Obama Classic fundraiser and co-headlines a $20,000 plate dinner following this fundraiser. Slowly but surely, Michael turned the page and started standing up for the black community. And in 2016, Michael Jordan speaks out on police violence with a personal statement on The Undefeated with the headline saying, "I can no longer stay silent." This is the first time Jordan had publicly spoken out on police violence since the emergence of the Black Lives Matter social movement. In this statement, Jordan recognizes and admits, is aware of his own overall positive experience with law enforcement. He recognizes, start quote, that for many people of color, their experience with police have been different than mine, end quote. Of course, he's Michael fucking Jordan. When he walks out of his house, when he's walking the streets, he's not going to succumb to the same judgments that other African Americans have unfortunately been exposed to. It's just not going to happen. He's Michael Jordan. He's probably one of the most recognizable people on the planet. At the end of the statement, he donates $1 million to both the International Associations of Chiefs of Police Institute for Community Police Relations and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. There it goes. Michael Jordan, 2016, first public statement after the Black Lives Matter social movement. Moving on to this past June of 2020, MJ's huge donation. Jordan Brand, over the next 10 years, will donate $100 million to improve racial equality, social justice, and greater access to education. Over time, from the early 90s to today, MJ has done a complete 180 in terms of his political activism towards the plight of African Americans in our country, which is great to see, because when someone like Michael Jordan, who has so much power, in such a large platform, a greater platform than any other athlete possibly of all time, people are going to sit there and they're going to listen and they're going to pay attention. So where we are currently, MJ is acting as a mediator between the owners and the players. Again, he is the only African American majority owner out of the NBA and NFL. That is crazy to me. The fact that the only way, technically, as of right now, the only way to become an owner in the NBA or NFL, he not only has to be the greatest athlete or the greatest player in his sport, he has to be a transcendent talent. Someone that not just changed the game of basketball, but the way that the sport was marketed, turned it from a global game to an international game. That's the only way that, as of right now, that a black man has become an owner of an NBA team. It's sad to say, but as of right now, it is true. So currently, MJ is acting as a mediator between the owners and the players. Prior to meeting with the owners, he spoke with Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, who are represented by Jordan Brand. Makes sense there. And Jordan told his fellow owners, quote, "Right now, listening is better than talking," end quote. And I would love to be a fly on the wall for the conversation between Jordan and the owners. Imagine MJ walking into a room with 29, or well, I guess Zoom calling with 29 white owners. He sticks his 6 rings on the tables and says, "Listen up, motherfuckers. I turned this game from a global to international. The whole reason you guys are making money off this sport's the $1 billion coming in from the millions on billions of dollars coming in from China every year. That is because of me. So listen up. Whatever I say goes. I became an owner in the NBA because I played this game. None of you guys played this game. Not one of you guys. Mark Cuban, yeah, you created some multi-billion-dollar internet, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I actually played this game, and that's why I'm sitting here with you guys, because I put my heart and soul into this game. You never had to deal with this. You didn't have to play the game in Utah with the flu. I didn't see you dropping 63 on the Boston Celtics in 86. I didn't see you winning 6 championships in 8 years. That's kind of how I'd hope it would go, but I feel like MJ was a little more diplomatic than that and probably gave them a piece of his mind. But rather so, the fact that Jordan is now the mediator between the owners and players from where he came is an amazing transformation that we love to see. The good news so far is, according to league sources, the owners are in unanimous agreement and support of the players. We'll see how that stands once this season is over. I think at this point, the owners and the players just want to get done with the bubble, move on to next season, and that's where things get complicated again. Imagine another scenario happens similar to Jacob Blake's shooting, and we see the players refusing to come out and play for the 2020-21 season. What happens then? Will the owners still be backing them then? It'll be exciting to see what happens next, but I wholly support the players. Again, kudos to you guys. Keep it up. You guys have the owners behind you now. Put words to action and see what changes you guys can make. I'm going to end this segment by quoting one of my favorite cultural anthropologists, Margaret Mead. Quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." End quote. You don't need an army. You just need a couple committed individuals willing to do whatever it takes to find justice in what they seek. So move forward. Malcolm Brogdon, Jaylen Brown, you guys might only be 23, 24, 25 years old, but you guys can change the world. After this break, we're going to take a 180 and go into a little more entertaining angle, and we're talking the Kendall Jenner All-NBA team. So stay tuned for that and more after this commercial break.
Listen up, sports bettors. This is Bryce, here to tell you about my favorite sports book, and that's BetUS. Football, basketball, and baseball are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. I only endorse one sports book, and that's BetUS.com. Why, you ask? BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the biz. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, and you need to know that you're going to get paid. You need a sports book that's going to offer everything, including live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, entertainment, and all kinds of crazy prop bets and futures. Call today at 1-800-MyBetUS. That's 1-800-MyBetUS, and they will talk you through getting started. Nobody in the industry gives bigger bonuses than BetUS. Join now, mention GSMC, and you can get up to 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody beats that. I bet at BetUS, and so should you. Join BetUS today. That's BetUS.com or call 1-800-MyBetUS. Mention GSMC to get 150 in bonuses on your first deposit.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So I think we've had enough of all the political talk for today's episode. So we're moving on to a little more of a fun topic here. And this is what I love. NBA and pop culture coming into one. And what better family to start with the Kardashians. Known for dating a lot of athletes in their days. And hey, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but when you see a trend, people are going to turn that into a story. They're going to talk about it, poke at it in so many different ways. That's just what the paparazzi and the media do. That's their job, to create headlines. So let's begin with the family tree here. And it starts from the top because the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. We're going to later get into the Kendall Jenner All-NBA team, because there's been a lot of news about that, especially recently during quarantine, with Devin Booker, the Phoenix Suns, been spotted out hanging with Kendall Jenner. But let's begin with the elder statesman here, and that is Khloe and Kim Kardashian. Khloe Kardashian, the older, taller sister Kardashian triplets, and there have been rumors in the past that she might be the daughter of O.J. Simpson. That has been brutally beat down and seems to not be true. But, I mean, if you look at it, she is 5'9", 5'10", while the rest of the Kardashians are more 5'2", 5'3". She is a little darker in skin tone, but let's go to why this has been a rumor. So back in the 90s, before the Kardashians were the Kardashians, there was a guy named O.J. Simpson. He supposedly has been accused of murdering his ex-wife, Nicole Simpson, along with her friend, Ron Goldman. What a great name. Let's just say that, Ron Goldman. Great name right there. So yeah, he's accused of murdering these two. He gets sent to trial. One of his good friends, Rob Kardashian, used to be an attorney, so they reinstated him in the state of California because supposedly he had a briefcase that might have had some incriminating evidence, and since Rob is now an attorney on the Dream Team, which is what they called O.J. Simpson's attorneys, he is unable to go on trial as a witness. To point out, Rob Kardashian and O.J. Simpson were very good friends. They hung out a lot. They became buddy-buddy, and there were rumors that O.J. Simpson might have slept with Kris Kardashian, the mother of Khloe and Kim, but that is not true at all. But again, I could definitely see the similarities. Sorry to get off topic there. So yes, Khloe Kardashian has been linked to many, many athletes, starting in December 2008 with Rashad McCants. Don't even know who that is. Supposedly played in the NBA. The funniest part of the relationship is after they ended in January 2009, he claims that if it wasn't for Khloe and their whole lifestyle that they live, that he would have been a $60 to $70 million player. Keep dreaming, McCants. And I'm not buying your talk because you never averaged more than double digits in a season more than once. So, and you were out of the league by 24 years old. So you can keep dreaming there. Next up on the list, the infamous Lamar Odom relationship. Married after dating for 1 month, filed for divorce. I mean, hey, they made it a couple of years at least, so filed for divorce in December of 2013. Back to Lamar in one moment. July of 2015, Khloe begins dating James Harden of the Houston Rockets. Khloe confirmed he cheated. Harden has this to say, quote, "I feel like it was for no reason," in regards to the spotlight that came with dating Khloe. "I wasn't getting anything out of it except my name out there and my face out there, and I don't need that. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it wasn't for me," end quote. Not exactly sure what he means there, but yeah, during that whole James Harden relationship, Lamar Odom overdosed, nearly died at a bunny farm in Vegas. By a bunny farm, I mean a brothel. Khloe was at his side, though. Kind of awkward when you have to go see your ex-husband who nearly died and you're dating another guy who played in the NBA. February 2016, James Harden's out of the picture, which brings us to Tristan Thompson, who, are they together now? Looks like it, but we'll see. So Tristan cheated while Khloe was pregnant with her child in 2018. Holy shit, that is literally the worst thing you can ever do. You should never take back a man after he cheats on you while you're pregnant with his child. That shows you have no respect for that woman. She is literally carrying around for 9 months a piece of you, and you have the audacity to go out there looking for women or having... I mean, yes, I guess women are throwing themselves at you, but still, regardless, no excuse there. And surprise, surprise, about a year later, he cheats again with family friend and best friend of Kendall Jenner, Jordan Woods. We're going to get to her a little bit later in this segment. But for now, that's the Khloe Kardashian timeline for you. Moving on to Kim Kardashian. She is the OG of dating athletes. 2007 to March of 2010, Reggie Bush, Heisman winner out of USC. They end up breaking up due to Kim's insane schedule and life in the spotlight, but they've stayed close to this day, which is great to see. I wonder how Kanye feels about that. Kim Kardashian, next, Kris Humphries. And this one is amazing. They had their own TV show. They're married for an iconic 72 days. And as soon as they got married, or as soon as they divorced, his career hit the shitter. Let's take a look at Kris Humphries' basketball reference page. They divorced in October of 2011. And honestly, at that point, he was killing it for the formerly known as the New Jersey Nets. In 2010-2011, he averages a double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds. Next year, he averages nearly 14 points a game and 11 rebounds in 2011-2012. So honestly, he did pretty well after they got out of a relationship. And then after that, completely down-spiraled, never averaged double digits in points or rebounds ever again out of the league by 31. So again, I don't know there. It did help. He was playing the best ball of his career when he was with Khloe Kardashian, or when he was with Kim Kardashian, and then after the breakup, one more solid year, and then completely hit the shitter. Overall, with the Kardashians, this is the smart thing about them. They continue to date athletes because I look at it this way. As a male, most males, I would say, they could give two shits about the Kardashian, their TV show, their fucking brand, and all that bullshit. But when they start dating athletes, Reggie Bush, Chris Humphries, James Harden, Lamar Odom, guys like me start to take notice. So end result is it's good for the brand. Dating famous people, especially athletes, attracts more attention and attracts a different demographic. It's honestly genius. Wow, like seriously, dating athletes is going to make males ages 18 to 35 more interested in following the Kardashians. That means more likes on their photos, more people tuning in to Keeping Up with the Kardashians because there's an athlete on the show in Lamar Odom. Not a bad marketing plan. I'm guessing Chris came up with that one. Now, moving on to the Kendall Jenner All-NBA team. And we start in August of 2014. Just 18 years old at the time, barely legal. Chandler Parsons and Kendall are seen having dinner. That brings us to our number two player off the bench, Chandler Parsons. Parsons quickly denied the reports, explaining, "It's kind of a long story. I trained with Gunnar Peterson here in LA. She works out before me, so I kind of just got to know her, and then we had dinner. And the next thing I know, I was on TMZ, ... I do not have a girlfriend." So player number one, denying any kind of sexual chemistry between him and Kendall Jenner. Next up, our starting point guard, D'Angelo Russell. Kendall has been seen courtside at many Lakers games. TMZ shot down the gossip pretty quickly, though, by checking with really good sources, that's in quotation marks, who said they are not dating and they are friends, but that's about it. So another player linked to Kendall, but again, they aren't dating. But there you have it, our starting point guard, D'Angelo Russell. Next, December 2016, Jordan Clarkson, a Laker teammate of Russell, is seen kissing Kendall. There you have it, Jordan Clarkson, our sixth man. And maybe that is why Kendall Jenner was at so many Lakers games courtside. Not there for D'Angelo Russell, but actually Jordan Clarkson. Don't blame her there. He's a pretty good-looking guy. Reports said they were very touchy-feely, Kendall and Clarkson, at Drake's AMA after party. Next, a video of them kissing on New Year's Eve went viral, confirming that the two were seeing each other. She can't deny that one when there's evidence out there. Moving on to our starting center, the man of LA, or used to be before he got shipped off to Detroit, Blake Griffin. So from August 2017, April 2018. Kendall opened up about the relationship on Vogue, revealing, "I'm happy. He's very nice. I have someone being very nice to me." She's probably not used to that. The pair cooled off in April and avoided each other at Coachella. Always awkward when you run into your ex at Coachella. You're tripping balls. You're doing the mushrooms, ecstasy, whatever other drugs the kids are doing these days. Definitely don't want to run into your ex then. Moving on to our starting power forward, Ben Simmons. The pair were spotted numerous times on several cute dates around LA. And they actually went on vacation with Khloe and Lamar. Now that's some NBA bonding for you. The young buck going with the once former sixth man of the year and his Kardashian wife on vacation would love to have seen that. Moving on to our starting small forward, Kyle Kuzma. Last summer, they were spotted together on a yacht. Not much outside of that, but again, when people see you in public with an NBA player, they're going to talk. And lastly, the starting shooting guard, the star of our team, and the current love interest of Kendall Jenner, Devin Booker. And this is a new one here. So they hung out a lot during quarantine. They went on a road trip to Arizona. Although that was against the law at the time, nobody really seemed to care. And on August 11th, the Instagram comment. Kendall Jenner posts with a photo of a strawberry. Devin Booker comments, "I like strawberries." Very smooth, Booker. Very smooth. Less words is more. Booker, this is where Jordan Woods comes back in to play, was previously linked to Jordan Woods, who infamously cheated with Tristan Thompson on Khloe, as we mentioned earlier. So what do all these relationships mean? So Kendall Jenner obviously has gotten a lot of backlash for being attached to so many NBA players. There's been sexist tweets and comments and videos. There was a video released this past April of a group of boys tossing a little girl back and forth with the caption reading, "NBA players passing around Kendall Jenner." Kendall Jenner did not really appreciate that. And let's start by pointing out the misogyny of assuming that a woman is being passed around like an object simply because she's spotted in public with more than one man in the same profession. Like, we don't hear about Leonardo DiCaprio getting shat on for dating all these supermodels. But this is where the double standard comes into play. And I'm going to point out that I am against the double standard. If a girl wants to hook up a lot of guys and a guy wants to hook up with a lot of girls, I don't think the girl should be judged and the guy should be called a pimp and whatever. It's not right. So I'm going to point out by saying that. But before I give you my final conclusion on how I feel about this whole Kendall Jenner dating half the NBA situation, let's go back to this video. One person replied saying maybe she's passing them around. And Jenner added with what has been now noted as the tweet of the year, "They act like I'm not in full control of where I throw this cooch." End quote. Kylie Jenner quickly called it the tweet of the year. Kim and Khloe Kardashian responded with emojis with crying, laughing face, a coffin, and a Seth the Soap backing up her sister. This was not even the first time that she has been roasted on social media. Last year, Jenner was forced to shut down similar speculation. She replied to a tweet that compared her reported ex-boyfriends to her starting lineup. The meme showed images of D'Angelo Russell, Jordan Clarkson, Simmons, Kyle Kuzma, and Blake Griffin, calling the 5 players a playoff team. Ha ha ha. It's kind of funny. She responded back saying,
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thanks for sticking with us today. And before I send you out on the rest of your Labor Day weekend, doing my favorite segment, Nick's Picks. And today on the agenda, best teams to not win the NBA championship. So I did a little research, and there have been 52 teams in the history of the NBA that have won 60 games, plus 60 plus games or the equivalent without winning the title. Surprisingly, only 9 of those teams reached the NBA Finals and lost. That means 43 teams either lost in the first round, the second, the Eastern or Western Conference Finals before making it to the final stage. And some of these teams include the 92-93 Phoenix Suns with Charles Barkley, Danny Ainge, Dan Marley, the 95-96 Orlando Magic with young Shaq and Penny. Unfortunately, they came up against Michael Jordan, the Bulls, like so many teams before them have. Same with those Phoenix Suns. The 08-09 Cleveland Cavaliers that won 66 games with a young LeBron James. And most recently, the 2017-2018 Rockets that held a 3-2 series lead on the Warriors and looked destined to finally make it to the finals and get through that Warriors juggernaut. Unfortunately, that didn't happen for them. And these teams didn't even make my cut. So let's begin, and we're going way back in the time machine, the 1972-73 Boston Celtics. They had the second best record in NBA history at that point, going 68-14. They had their top players were David Coens, John Havlicek, and JoJo White, all Hall of Famers, and each averaged at least 20 points that game, with Havlicek leading the bunch with 23.8 points per game. But they also had a balanced team, 6 players in double figures. And they came up against a historic New York Knicks team. Havlicek injured his shoulder, was ineffective in a 7-game series loss. And the New York Knicks went on to win their second and only championship since 1972-73. Moving on to number 4. And this team had the bad luck of being the 11th and the second team that season to win 67-plus games, and that is the 2015-2016 San Antonio Spurs. They lost in the second round to OKC in 6 games. They had Kawhi Leonard, who was just coming into his own, averaging 26 points and 6 rebounds a game, while winning his second consecutive Defensive Player of the Year award and claiming his first team All-NBA. They also had Tim Duncan, LaMarcus Aldridge, who was a third-team All-NBA. And I completely forgot that they had LaMarcus Aldridge on this team. This team went up against that Warriors team that went 73-9. And they had the 8th best point differential in NBA history. And again, before that season, only 9 teams had won 67-plus games. The Warriors were the 10th, and unfortunately, the Spurs were the 11th. They had an aging core of Tim Duncan at 39, Manu Ginobili at 38, and Tony Parker at 33. This was really their last chance to win a championship with this core that they've had since the 2001 season. However, unfortunately, they came up against the OKC Thunder, who only won 58 games that year, but we knew they had 2 of the best 10 players in the league in Durant and Westbrook, and they showed in that second round win, averaging 54 points amongst those 2 stars. So number 4 on my list, the 2015-2016 San Antonio Spurs. Next up, the 96-97 Utah Jazz. The year after, they went to the NBA Finals again, so 2 consecutive years, and both seasons came up against the GOAT, Michael Jordan, who took away a lot of championships from a lot of players in the 90s. Charles Barkley, Magic Johnson, John Stockton and Karl Malone, of course, Gary Payton, Clyde Drexler, just to name a few. And the outcome there, they lost to the Bulls in 6 games. The top players, Karl Malone, John Stockton, and then Jeff Hornacek even added in 14.5 points a game. Karl Malone became the oldest player in NBA history to win MVP at 33, breaking the record set by Michael Jordan in the previous season. Jordan would recapture it again in 98, and Malone would again retake it in 99 at 35 years old. So pretty interesting title to hold, and kind of a ironic back and forth match between him and Michael Jordan over the next couple of years. Stockton finished second in assists per game at 10.5, but was unable to claim the assist title for the first time in 9 years to Mark Jackson. They had 2 separate 15-game winning streaks. So imagine, in that, if you add those 2 winning streaks together, they basically went 30-0 in 2 combined stretches over the course of the season. In the playoffs, they went 11-4 through the first 3 rounds. But again, like most teams in the 90s, outside of those Rockets, they ran into Jordan, and they just weren't enough to take home the championship. Next up, and this team would still hold the number one spot if not for an historic upset to the number one team, which we'll get to in a sec, and this is the 2001-2002 Sacramento Kings. They led the NBA with a 61-21 record, and they lost, put that in quotation marks, lost in the Western Conference Finals to the Lakers. We'll get to that in a sec as well. Top players, Chris Webber, Mike Bibby, and Peja Stojakovic. Webber, who I think is one of the most underrated players in NBA history. He gets a lot of slack for his inability to come up in the clutch. We all know the calling the timeout when he was at Michigan, but the guy was a solid NBA player, a 5-time All-Star, a borderline Hall of Famer. He averaged a ridiculous 24.5 points a game on 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.7 steals, and 1.4 blocks. Good enough for second team All-NBA. Peja had an efficient 21 points a game on 48% from the field, 41% from deep, and 87% from the free throw line, making one of his 4 All-Star team appearances. And this team was also very balanced and had one of the deeper benches to most of the teams on this list. They had 7 different players in double figures. Young Hedo Turkoglu, Bobby Jackson, Vlade Divac, and Doug Christie, combined with Mike Bibby, Stojakovic, and Chris Webber for 7 different players in double figures. However, unfortunately, they lost to the Lakers in 7 games. The last 4 games came down to the last seconds. Robert Horry's buzzer beater 3 in Game 4 was undoubtedly the dagger for the Kings. If that shot missed, the Kings would most likely have been NBA champions that season. The Kings even held a 3-2 series lead, but in Game 6, the Lakers shot 18 more free throws than the Kings in the 4th quarter alone. If you go back and watch the game, Vlade Divac grazes Shaquille O'Neal on several plays and is called for a foul. It was later discovered, though, that the series was impacted by the Tim Donahue scandal. That must really eat at Kings fans who haven't even made the playoffs since 2006. Be that as it may, it is unfortunate that the Kings never raised a championship banner. That was a solid all-around team. Chris Webber was just getting into his prime. Mike Bibby and Peja Stojakovic provided range. Vlade Divac was an engaging personality and a talented flopper, and the veteran on a team with a lot of younger players. And Bobby Jackson, a young Hedo Turkoglu, supplied production off the bench. Solid all-around team. If not for this epic upset, they would be number one on any list. But now moving on to number 1, the 2015-2016 Golden State Warriors. 73 wins, but no ship. An NBA record. And we all know they lost in the NBA Finals to the Cleveland Cavaliers in 7 games, blowing a 3-1 series lead. There's a Draymond Green nut check that had him suspended in Game 5. And then LeBron and Kyrie go for 40-plus each. And look at the year before. They won 67 games and the title. And we thought that was a fluke. They came up against a Cleveland team where LeBron was playing with 2 undrafted players, which I don't think he gets enough credit for, that he took that series to 6 games. Matthew Dellavedova and Timothy Mozgov were 2 starters. 2 players that went undrafted were starting in an NBA Finals game. And LeBron was able to take that series to 6 games. So we thought it was a fluke that the Cavaliers were going to come in and beat the Warriors that year, but this Warriors team began the season 24-0, another NBA record. The previous record was 15-0, so they beat that record by 9 total games. They basically eclipsed it by over 50%, and at one point were 39-4 to begin the year. They had Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Curry won the first ever unanimous MVP, averaging a ridiculous 30 points a game on 50% from the field, 45% from deep, and 90% from the line. And for good measure, averaged 6.7 assists. Draymond Green, one of the best and overall complete players in the NBA, averaged 14 points per game, 49% from the field, 39% from deep, and added in nearly 10 rebounds a game, 7.4 assists, 1.5 steals, and 1.4 blocks. Honestly, one of the greatest role players in NBA history. And then Thompson, the second or third star, however you want to look at it, averaged 21, shooting nearly 43% from deep. And just look at this team overall. They set an NBA record in three-point efficiency. They shot 41.6% as a team on 32 attempts a game. That led the league in both categories. Again, the 41.6% is an NBA record. However, they came up against LeBron and the Cavs, up 3-1, couldn't close it out. They lose the series. We all know what happens then. Kevin Durant bolts from OKC, coming to the Warriors, forming by far the greatest team in NBA history, winning 2 titles in 3 years. So running down the list of Knicks picks for the best teams not to win the championship, starting at number 5, the 72-73 Celtics. Number 4, 2015-2016 San Antonio Spurs. Number 3, the 96-97 Utah Jazz. Number 2, the 2001-2002 Sacramento Kings. And lastly, the number 1 team, the 2015-16 Warriors. 73 wins, no ship to show for it. And that's all we have for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in, as always, to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Nick Robin. Please like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you find your podcast. And we look forward to being back with you after this Labor Day weekend. Enjoy, be safe, and make smart decisions. And we'll see you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.